Hi all, welcome to GradMissions Office Hours. I'm Autumn.
Hey everybody, I'm Lisanne.
I'm Logan. Hi all. We were sitting here talking about just catching up on all the med and law school applications. We're doing kind of a 50-50 these days. It's half celebrating, our clients who are about to get started next month for med and law school. Some of our med clients are starting orientation this month, which is so exciting. And then the other part of it is starting to meet with some of you brand new friends who are gearing up to apply to start next fall. And so it's sort of this bittersweet time. We know that our time with our current clients is coming to an end, but we have a fresh crop of new people coming in. And part of the whole way that we get those new clients in the door starts with our application strategy call. And so we get a lot of questions in email and DM, in no shows sometimes of people who are anxious, right? They want to know what's going to happen. What's going to happen on that phone call? Is this like when you're trying to sell me something and throw in a set of steak knives, or am I actually going to get value added even if I don't end up signing up with GradMissions? So we thought we would break down what you can expect and the kind of feedback that we get after those 20-minute calls.
Absolutely. And it's not, I mean, to answer right away, it's not just a sales pitch. We
No.
get that question a lot on socials is, am I signing up just to hear all about what you want me to pay for?
Right.
But then also it kind of depends on what the client wants to talk about. And so
That's right.
I don't know. We get a variety of just, hey, I saw Instagram post about accommodations. I have no clue to where to even start, and that may take our whole 20 minutes just talking about that. Like you said, Autumn, you're going to leave with some value. We always take time to answer questions that you have first
That's right.
before going into anything further.
So I'm relatively new to grad missions, and I'm usually working on the back end of some of our projects. Who are you mostly doing a discovery call for? Like at what stage in their education are you taking a discovery call for them?
It honestly, the youngest discovery call that I've had, application strategy call, you'll hear us kind of talk about it in both of those ways. It was a seventh grader. And she wants to be a doctor, and she knows that it's a long haul, and she wanted to know what she could start studying. And I was like, okay, can I meet with a minor? Like, is this okay? Like, it felt a little strange, and she was so lovely. And obviously I didn't try to sell her anything. We just talked about some good things she could do as a seventh grader, and I gave her a lot of really hands-on kind of applicable things that she can do. And she's going to be entering a science fair and things like that, that isn't just about building her med school application, but like growing who she is as a person. Talked about taking reading and writing intensive courses, talked about getting in front of people and talking, like that interview experience, right? Like these are the kind of early foundational things that she could do. And I think a lot of big box companies like ours that are not like ours would probably have been like, you're in seventh grade, like, bye. And to me, that's just planting seeds for, a future generation of a grad missions client. Primarily, though, in our oldest one, I met with a 75-year-old man who wanted to go to law school, and he wanted to know if his two-digit LSAT score would still count. No, it will not. You'll have to retake the LSAT. But that's kind of the spectrum. So, from seventh grade to 71 years old, I have had application strategy calls. And, for me personally, I'm an extrovert, right? And I work in an office in my house. And so this is my time to socialize, to get to know people. Being on the front lines of grad missions is something that's really important to me. It's part of the reason I started this business because, when I work for schools, I'm dealing with regents and higher ups and policy and politics and all those things. And I'm not getting to sit with students and talk. And so the app strategy call is one of my favorite things. And so the stage that people typically come to us, though, is, sophomore, junior year of undergrad, second, third year for our Canadian friends. And you're starting to hear the buzz of people who seem like they know what they're doing, who have similar goals to you, and you see something from us on socials and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I need to know more about that. And so that's typically why people book an application strategy call with us.
Man, the seventh grader, that makes me question my own personal life choices and trajectory of my own life. That's pretty incredible. So, okay, so I'm a sophomore. Oh, I'm sorry, Lisanne.
No, you're fine. I was just gonna say the way you guys have scared me about med school. I'm like, is she behind?
Yeah.
She was. I had to give her the bad news. She's gonna have to take a gap year. Bless her.
Yeah, they do make like baby board books for, basically step one preparation. So
Oh,
I should probably get my daughter in on those already. We're
Should.
probably behind. Um, so I'm a sophomore, junior in college. I know that I want to go to law or med. Let's say law
okay.
for this example. Um, I have not started preparing anything. I haven't looked into the LSAT. I haven't looked at law schools. I have not, I don't even know what the application process is like. Where would you start with me?
Yeah. So when you click on our calendar link that book a call, and you click on a calendar link, there will be a few little homework questions that we ask you. Um, and that's just to make sure, first of all, you're not a robot. And then second of all, to make sure you're not a scammer. Like every now and then people get through and I'm like, but if you filled out the questions that I know, first of all, that you are a real person who wants help with getting into law or med school, and I get to know a little bit of a foundation about you so that we can really use that 20 minutes to go the direction that I see that you need to go in. So you would, you select a couple of things if you're applying to law or med school, where you are in the process, what schools you're thinking about, if there's any character and fitness things we need to talk about. Sometimes people book these strategy calls just as like a confessional time, and we need to talk through how to manage that. But let's say you came to the call after filling out the homework and you are exactly where you said you are, sophomore year, thinking about law school, but know nothing about the process. I would first talk to you about your GPA. How's your cumulative GPA? Because that is one of the metrics that law schools are going to be looking at. It is important, as we've talked about in lots of previous episodes. And so we've kind of talked about if you're a sophomore, you still have 2 years to write that upward trajectory story. So even if you have a 1.97, right, we can have a conversation about what this looks like. Sometimes people get a little squirmy whenever I ask about their cumulative GPA. It's not a gotcha. It's not me saying I'm not going to work with you because you don't have a 4.0. But in this land of admissions, it's better to pull the curtain back and know what the monster looks like on the other side of the window rather than closing the curtain and pretending it's not there and applying to schools that are completely out of your reach. So it will be a kind conversation, but we're going to be realistic. It doesn't do either one of us any good for me to sugarcoat things for you. So I want to know where you are. What classes are you enjoying? What classes do you hate and are you avoiding? Did you start out pre-med and that's why your GPA is so terrible? And now you're in your, English and lit classes and you're doing great. Well, that's a pretty good sign that maybe law school's for you. So we talk a little bit about the things that you enjoy. We talk about why you picked the undergrad you picked. What were you looking for? What has been your experience? What are you involved in? What are you excited about? And then we'll talk a little bit about what your long-term goals are. Where do you see yourself after law school? Maybe you don't know exactly what kind of law you want to practice, but we're going to talk about geographic regions, areas of law that might interest you. And then I'll answer any burning questions that you have. And then I'll give you some very actionable items for you to do, even if you don't sign up with us, right? Like this is if you were to sit next to me on an airplane, I'm not a talker, I promise, but if you engaged me and said like, "Hey, I heard you do law school admissions counseling. What should I do to get prepared to go to law school?" You will leave the meeting with, 5 to 7 actionable items to put yourself ahead of the game in the law school admissions space. And then I send you a follow-up email that has all the things that we talked about, so that you don't have to copiously write notes while I'm talking.
Is it any different if instead of being fresh to the process, I've actually been through the process, didn't get any interviews anywhere, and now I'm trying to do this for a second time? Does it change at all?
It does. So that we've kind of shifted to med there. And so I think what I have several clients every year who were not successful on their own last cycle, and that's why they've engaged with us. And in our application strategy calls, we will talk in depth about what happened last cycle, right? So I'm trying to think if this client listens to the podcast or not. I hope she doesn't. Anyway, so I have one of the clients like that this cycle. Like she told me her MCAT score, she told me her science GPA, she told me her cumulative GPA, and I was like, hmm. She told me when she applied. That wasn't the problem. Like I know these kind of like bruises that I can press and be like, does this hurt? Does this hurt? And I can usually figure out why someone wasn't invited to interview even once. She only got 2 invites to interview. And, at that point, I hadn't seen her full application yet, but in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, the writing must have been really thin, right? You like submitted just the facts, you didn't expand upon it. You didn't take your clinical experience beyond just listing the roles that you did. You didn't talk about the what you left with, all those kind of things. And so another thing that I noticed though about her is that the whole time she's talking to me, she's like this. And if you're watching us on Spotify or YouTube, you can see I have my fingers up near my lips. She touches her face the whole time she talks. And so even at the schools that she was able to get an interview at, I'm guessing that her interview scores were pretty terrible because of the way she presents and carries herself. So we haven't had that conversation yet. When we get to mock interviews, she did sign up and we're working together and we did a complete rewrite of her application and really approached it and I pressed her, right? Like, you're telling me about this clinical experience that you did, but like tell me about it, for instance. Tell me what you took away from that. Like, what did you observe? Those kind of things. And so sometimes the application strategy call can feel a little bit tricky just because we have to talk about some uncomfortable things. But I would rather you hear it from me than from like a denial letter from an email. And so that's kind of the med side of things. It is a little more in depth. The more information I know about you, the deeper we can dive in that strategy call, the more you're going to get out of it.
So I guess I wasn't anticipating in my mind when I asked that question that that was obviously I work more with the med students, so that's
Yeah.
why I thought to ask the question. Why does that apply more to med students than law students?
It is way more common to have to reapply in the med school space. Like people who have like on paper, they look perfect. And they will tell you their application is strong, even if it was very thinly written, and wasn't contemplative enough, didn't show that their clinical hours had an impact on them. So especially if you don't have a ton of clinical hours and then you also can't talk about it with any kind of depth, you're going to get an immediate like needs more clinical experience, right? Even if you've had incredible experiences, if you don't know how to talk about them, then the committee doesn't know. So in the law school space, you can typically find a law school that will admit you that cycle, right? Especially if you apply early enough, unless it was this cycle. This cycle was wild. But you can typically, there's a law school for everybody, right?
And the
It might
class
be
sizes are probably larger, right?
larger. Yeah,
Yeah.
law school is way less selective, but sometimes people do reapply to law school if they need a better scholarship offer, if they want to retake the LSAT, if various things happen. But it's way more common to reapply in the med school space.
The other thing I was going to ask when you were talking about the student that, had her hands up to her face in more of an in-depth call we had with a student that I was on, you gave a really good tip about Zoom interviews or talking on Zoom that I had never heard. And I was offending the rule like as you were talking about it.
Hey,
Do you remember,
Logan.
do you remember what this was? It
Oh,
it was like you're supposed to sit like 3 feet back or something. You're doing it, Autumn.
I do it. I have to.
So
Yeah.
is it 3 feet back and then you are supposed to show your hands because it's disarming?
You should show your hands when you can. Yep.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is, not for the listener, this is for the viewer, but I'm pretty sure that when we had this conversation, like this is what you could see of me, which is my
Yes.
forehead for the
Yes.
listener.
That's right. Well, so I am a student of Vanessa Van Edwards. She is my like spirit animal. She's a Texas girly. She lives in Austin. And she does a lot around the concept of like just like body language and the way we present and all of the unspoken, unwritten ways that we communicate with people. And so just in listening to her, and I will, my little med clients, especially the ones that are awkward, I will actually assign them a couple of her podcasts to watch and listen to before interview season because she does such a good job of helping you evoke the kind of presence that you want to have. And especially, MD interviews are all online. It's all Zoom. And so even if you're a warm, fuzzy, need a knee kind of person, you still have to be able to evoke confidence and competence and warmth in your interview. And it's really important. And I'm gauging. I'm tracking all of that in this application strategy call, right? Like I have notes on this child who I'm going to talk to very soon, who I hope she doesn't hear this first. Um, and honestly, she's not very self-aware. She probably wouldn't even know I'm talking about her. So that's fine. I can edit this out, right? um, but I will assign these things to her before we start doing mock interviews, because these are the little things that she can tweak. This is also the reason that I don't have my prices listed on my website, because some of you are going to take a larger lift than others, and I know from talking with you how much work it's going to be. And so one size does not fit all. And so we will talk price. For those of you who are wondering, like, oh, how much does this cost? I will tell you on the application strategy call. I will talk you through what payment plans look like, and talk you through kind of what the agreement looks like. But that's typically the last like 3.5 minutes of the call. The rest of the call is spent with me giving you as much inside baseball tips and tricks as I can for whatever path that you're on. And then when I remember, I'm like, oh, and if you want to work together, here's what it looks like. And then I send it all in an email so that you can look at it. I'm actually trying to get better about that part, about talking about that. But the main point of the application strategy call is clearly just that, is to help you strategize your application.
And this is those things that, like you mentioned, Autumn, when we were on the other side of the table, things that we saw, but we were restricted because we worked for a specific school, where now it's not meant to come from a place of judgment or criticism. It's the feedback that these students need to know in order to present themselves in the best way possible. These
That's
students
right.
are so driven, have achieved so much, but we're all imperfect. We're all gonna, have certain things that don't present as well. And so being able to have the freedom to speak honestly with that student is, because not being able to tell them the whole truth about everything is really damaging, whereas if we can sit down and say, hey, I know that your heart is set on this school. Realistically, these are things that we need to work on, as opposed to, oh, it's fine, like just apply early. It's all good. Like
That's right.
that's not helpful. And so like you said, you said it perfectly. It's like pushing a little bruise, especially students who, they're coming to you, they weren't successful the first time. They're obviously feeling a little embarrassed about it. Not that they should, but it happens, and you've got
Yes.
different responsibilities, expectations on you. And to just have someone, what I love about what we do is we truly walk alongside our clients, and we wish them the best. We want them to be successful. But
That's
that
right.
comes with, hey, I'm not going to help you succeed if I'm not telling you the truth. And
That's
so I
right.
feel like we do that from jump. Sorry, am I 3 feet back? My chairs keep showing up. But just we do that from jump, right? Like, hey, our first meeting, we want you to know the clear expectations that we have
That's right.
from you, but also from us.
That's
Um,
right.
yeah,
And we're not for everyone.
true.
Like, we're really not. Like, if you've been following us on socials and you happen to find this podcast and you're listening and you're like, these girls are annoying. I mean, respectfully, that's great. Go somewhere else. Like, I'm not interested in working with people who I'm not for. Life is too short. And this work is it's intimate. And I don't mean that in like a sexual way, but like we are going to be talking about your biggest goals in life at this point. We are going to be talking about the things in your life that you feel like are the hindrances between or standing between you and those goals. And if I don't think we can communicate, if you spend the whole application strategy call telling me how awesome you are, I'm probably going to quote you a price that's very high, or I'm just going to point blank tell you on the call, like, I wish you all the best. I don't think I have anything to offer for you. It doesn't happen very often. Like, I can typically find a path forward with most people, but it's also kind of just a little, you know, a judgment call and a test for both of us, right? Like, it's a way for us to know. The other thing, sometimes we have people who they just don't have a chance. Their undergraduate GPA was severely too low. They had a character and fitness issue that's going to preclude them from being able to sit for the bar, or, get through the background check to even start med school, or they've exceeded the lifetime chances to take the MCAT. There are there are things that are between you and your goals, and it's impossible. And you just need to be told really, politely that this is not the place for you. I would rather you find that on a free 20-minute call with me than spending $5,000 applying to a bunch of med schools you don't have a chance at.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I can't tell you how many times when I worked for med schools that a person would call, they would tell me their stats. I would say, you need to sit it out. You need to try again. Here are the things you need to do. And they're like, well, I'm just going to try. Right. It's the whole like, well, it's holistic. It's holistic. I'm like, yeah, but it's also realistic.
I know that you don't say that lightly, also, Autumn, because I know I can be quick to write somebody off myself. And we have worked with some clients that I looked at their application and I was like, wait, are we doing this? And you didn't even bat an eye. You were like, yeah, of course. Of
Mhm.
course. Like, this is what this person wants to do, and here's a clear way through that we can try to give it a shot. I will say that in the med space, applying DO programs has to be a part of that
Yeah.
strategy.
Yes.
Do you find that sometimes there are students who are opposed to applying to DO schools? Is that a part of the conversation that you have from the beginning?
I'm so glad that you brought that up. Yes, absolutely. Um, Historically, right, MD is the more prestigious, and DO is for people who couldn't cut it in the med school application process. And that is sort of the stigma that exists. And I think there's definitely some research that you need to do when you're trying to decide between allopathic or osteopathic medicine. But I also know that DO schools actually take a holistic review and they end in you having a white coat and they end in you being able to take USMLE now, right? Like that's an option that you have in DO schools that did not used to exist. And the inability to take USMLE is what really disadvantaged folks from being able to match into competitive fields. But I cannot tell you how many times I meet with someone who, their end goal is internal medicine. Their end goal is pediatrics. And they're like, well, I'm MD only and I have to go to a tier one school and they have, south of a 3.0 cumulative GPA. It's not going to happen in the MD space. It's not. And I won't work with you if that's your only consideration. But if you're willing to educate yourself about osteopathic medicine, shadow someone in DO, get an LOR from someone in the DO space, take someone to Herbal D, who's a DO, and talk with them about their experience, then there's probably a med school for you. And there's still a strategy and it's still competitive and you still have to do your work on the MCAT, but there is a much clearer path forward for medicine and it is not black or white. Your black or white thinking around med school may be your biggest enemy.
I also think that viewing DO as inferior to MD in some type of way, that's also just outdated thinking.
It is.
That's
Yes.
kind of some boomer thinking that just
Oh,
is not. I mean, I'm saying that because my mom is kind of one of those people. She's not going to listen to this, so I'm going to say it.
do it.
She's kind of someone who turns her nose up at a DO, and the truth is, they can take step. They would have to take and pass step. They're vying for the same away rotations during medical school. DOs, students who are in DO programs are applying to MD away rotations and getting the opportunity to rotate there. You know, at the end of the day, they're both called doctor. None of it's easy. I think
No.
that's the thing is everyone wants to say like, oh, that's the easy route, and none of it's easy. That's a joke.
No, none of it is easy. Um, one of my dear friends who's since passed away, she lived across the street from us all during COVID. She was an ER doctor, and she's a DO. And watched her from my window used to look out on the front of my house instead of now the back of my house. And I would see her in her full hazmat suit, her husband out there. I'm just like teary even thinking about it, like spraying her down with a water hose before she would come into the house. And she worked her tail off for that degree and saved so many people. And she was a DO. Like, I think we can all think of folks in our lives and our ecosphere. And here's the thing. If you're considering MD only, you should go and shadow a DO just to see what it's like and talk to them about why they chose DO over MD. And I think some of you would be surprised that it wasn't because they had a low MCAT score or GPA. Some of them chose DO because they truly align better with osteopathic concepts. So you shouldn't be afraid to book an application strategy call. What's that line? I feel like we quote Still Magnolias at least once every episode. We won't make you eat a live chicken, not on your first visit. You know what I mean? So it's easy. It's easy for you to come to talk about the things you're embarrassed about, to know that our only goal is to get you closer to your end goal, right? Same team. We're on the same team as you. We want you to have a smoother glide path, to not make the mistakes that are out there, the landmines that you don't even know exist. We can help you avoid those and just give you a little boost. And if you want to work with us, great. And if not, I will still be rooting for you.
Questionable for me, but you know.
We always need that dark horse. I love having you on the team, Logan, because you just bring that gravity, and we're like, at the end of the day, keep your hands out of your mouth, folks. 3 feet back from the zoom lens, tilt it down a little bit. Good light. Show your hands so we know you're not locked and loaded. Okay, that's what you're going to take away from this experience. Lysanne, maybe you are locked and loaded. IDK.
Fine. I'm a safe space in all senses of the word.
All right, we'll talk more next time, y'all. We're turning off the lights here in the pod loft, but they're always on our socials.
Yeah. So ask us questions that you want us to talk about on the podcast,
Yes.
or just in general on stories. We answered tons of questions. No question is too much. Just let us know.
That's right. Bye, y'all.